Hi friends, in this video we're going to talk about how to set up .NET development easily in Visual Studio, .NET CLI and VS Code. So we're going to cover three scenarios. So if you're developing with Visual Studio, if you're developing with .NET CLI or if you're developing with Visual Studio Code. By the way, if you don't know what .NET is an amazing cross-platform application development framework. I've already made a video on what is .NET. I will leave the link of this video in the description, so please check it out. Alright, let's get started. To set up .NET development, the first thing would be to install .NET. So you can just search for download .NET or else go to this link dotnetmicrosoft.com/download, and here you will find the .NET SDK. So download the .NET SDK and install it, and after you install you can verify if .NET is installed by this command .NET --" version. So let's go to the command prompt. So I'm going to write .NET --" version. So now you can see .NET 8.0.4 is installed. Alright, we have completed the first step, which is installing the .NET. So you are going to develop .NET applications. So there is an important concept called solutions and projects in .NET. So what is a .NET project? .NET project is basically a .NET application. That means the Hello World application you run, or the web application, or the desktop application, whatever the application you run in .NET is actually a project. So each project has its own csproj file, and it will obviously have an entry point file from where the program will run. It will also have other classes, dependencies, etc. But basically an application in .NET can be a project. And what is a solution? Solution is basically a group of projects. So I have a solution here and it has two projects in it. Each project has its own csproj file and entry point file. This project also has its csproj file and an entry point file, and these two projects are present in a folder, and this folder has a .sln file which is a solution file, and these two projects will be added in this solution file. We will see the solution file, csproj file in a while, but this is how you organize your applications in .NET. You create one or more projects and those projects will be in a solution. So that's the concept of solution and projects in .NET. Alright, now let's set up Visual Studio to build a simple console application. So to use Visual Studio, you have to download and install it. Just search for download Visual Studio or else go to this link visualstudio.microsoft.com/downloads, and here find the community edition and you can install it. The community edition is free. There are also professional and enterprise options. So download Visual Studio and install it. So after you download and install Visual Studio, let's try to create a new solution and create projects in that. So search for Visual Studio. I have Visual Studio 2022 installed. Just click on this and then you'll have this home screen. You can go to this option, create a new project, and here you can create a project from many templates which are already present. Let's try to create a console application. So you can see the project types drop down. Let's try to easily filter out the console application. Select the console. You can even create web applications. You can select the web and you'll get web application options. For now, let's try to go to the console applications, a simple console app. Let's try to click next, and then it will ask you the folder location where you will create the solution. I have a blank folder. Let's try to select that folder. I'm going to browse and I'm selecting this folder location. Select folder, and then it will ask the project name and the solution name. So let's try to make the solution name as .NET Training, and let's try to make the project name as something like Hello World. Let's try to click next. It will ask the .NET version. I'm using the .NET 8 version here, and then Microsoft Visual Studio is creating a project. You can see Visual Studio has created our project. There is a solution, there is a project. The solution name is .NET Training, the project name is Hello World, and if you click on this project or right click on the project and edit the project file, you can see the csproj file of the project. The csproj file will have the project properties like what is the type of the project, what is the framework, etc. You can see the output type is exe. That means it's not going to be a class library, it's going to be a console application. The target framework is .NET 8. Implicit usings and nullables are enabled. We'll talk about this in future sessions. So we have a project Hello World. Let's try to see the solution file also. In fact, let's go to the folder where the project is created. You can see after we create a project in Visual Studio, it has created a folder for the solution. If you go to the solution, you got .NET Training.sln. This is the solution file which we are talking about. Let's try to right click and open it in Notepad. So this is the SLN file we are talking about. You can see a project is added in the solution. Our project Hello World is added in the solution. This is the path of the csproj file. You can see here is a folder called Hello World. In that there is a hello world.csproj file which you have just seen now. And then there are also some configurations about the solution. So in our project there is this program.cs which is the entry point. And now let's try to run this Hello World project. You can click on this play button or else you can right click and debug, start new instance. You can see we got the output Hello World. So when I run the application, .NET has compile, check for errors, build the project and then run the application. Well, in this program.cs file, you can even write async code. You can even access the command line arguments using the args keyword. Args keyword contains the command line arguments because it's a keyword reserved for the entry point file. If you use args keyword, you'll get the command line arguments. So for example, if I write code something like this for s in args, so s would be a string, whatever the command line strings you give, you can just print it. In fact, let's try to save this and run this. Since I did not give any command line arguments, I just got hello world. But in the project folder, go to bin folder where the binaries would be generated after running the app. Since we are running in debug mode, you got the debug folder. Open the debug folder. In .NET 8, you have something called an exe file, which actually is a packaged application. You can run it actually. So let's try to open a command line here and let's try to run our project hello world.exe and let's try to give some arguments here. Hi, how are you? So I have given 4 command line arguments. Our code should actually just print each argument with a space. So let's try to run this. It said hello world, hi, how are you? So you can even access the command line arguments using the args keyword in the entry point file. Well, that's how you can easily set up a .NET development environment using Visual Studio. Now let's try to set up .NET development with .NET CLI. .NET CLI is the command line tool when you install the .NET SDK. You can do a lot with .NET CLI in the command line itself without using any code editor or tools. So this was the folder where we have created the .NET solution using Visual Studio. Let's try to delete this folder and create a .NET solution using the .NET CLI now. So let's try to open a command prompt in this folder. The first thing is to create a solution, right? So I'm going to write .NET new SLN, which stands for solution, and give the name for the solution. I'm going to name the solution as .NET training. So I'm creating a new solution using the .NET CLI. .NET new SLN -n, which stands for name .NET training. Let's click enter. Now you got a .sln file. Let's create a new project and add to the solution. So you can create a new console application using .NET new console, and I want to create this project in a separate folder. So I'm going to write -o, which stands for output, and the solution folder would be hello world. So a new project inside a folder called hello world would be created. The project will be of type console. So let's try to click enter. So you can see inside the hello world folder, hello world.cs project is created. Let's go to this folder. You can see the folder where the project is created, and inside that you have the csproj file and the entry point, which is a program.cs file. We have created the project, but we need to add the project to the solution. So you can do that using .NET SLN add the project folder where the csproj is present. The project folder is hello world, so I'm going to write hello world. So .NET SLN add hello world. Let's try to click enter, and now the project is added to the solution. Now you got your solution and project, and you added the project to the solution. In this way you can create multiple projects and add them to the solution. In fact, let's try to verify that. Right click on this .NET.SLN and open with Notepad, and here you can see our project is added to the solution. And that's it. Without any code editor, we have created a .NET project. Let's try to go to the project folder, and here you can see the program.cs. Let's try to open it with Notepad. Here you can see the entry point C# code console.writeline hello world. You can even edit it here in Notepad without any code editor. So that's it. Without using any code editor, just by using the .NET CLI, we have set up a .NET project, and you can even edit the project in Notepad without any editor. So that's how you can set up .NET project using the .NET CLI. Now let's talk about setting up a .NET project using vscode. In our scenario, we have used .NET CLI to set up the project. But to edit the project, you can use an editor other than Notepad also. VS Code would be a very nice option for that, in fact. VS Code or Visual Studio Code is a very famous code editor which supports many languages. In fact, it supports C# language also. So let's set up C# development environment in Visual Studio Code. The first thing is to download Visual Studio Code. You can search for Visual Studio Code download, or else go to code.visualstudio.com/download, and you download the Windows version and install it. And after installing the Visual Studio Code, search for the C# dev kit extension and then install it. This extension will add the language support and also give many tools to easily develop .NET applications in Visual Studio Code. So I've installed Visual Studio Code. So I'll search for Visual Studio Code, open Visual Studio Code. Now let's try to delete the folder where we have created a project using .NET CLI. Let's try to create a project using Visual Studio Code now. Let's try to open the same folder in Visual Studio Code. File, Open Folder. So I have selected the folder, Select Folder. So we have installed Visual Studio Code. Let's try to install the C# Dev Kit extension. So search for extensions, and in the extensions tab, search for C# Dev Kit. So I have searched C# Dev Kit, and you'll get the C# Dev Kit extension. Go ahead and install the C# Dev Kit extension. Now the folder is empty. Let's try to create a .NET solution and a .NET project. Now that you have installed C# Dev Kit, you will get some cool commands. Click on Ctrl+Shift+P to open the command panel and search for .NET. You'll get all the .NET commands, and here I got a .NET new project. So click on .NET new project, and after some time you will get the project templates. Let's try to search for the console template. Click on console app, and now it's asking for the name of the console application. Let's try to name the console application as Hello World and click enter. The project would be created in the same directory. Click on enter, and it's asking to create the project, and that's it. You got a new tab called Solution Explorer in VS Code because you installed the C# Dev Kit extension. And if you open the normal folder, you can see the folder structure. In fact, let's try to minimize the Solution Explorer first, and let's see the folders. You got the SLN file, and you can see the project Hello World is added in this XLN file. So Visual Studio has created a solution and created a folder for the project, and inside the project you got the csproj file which contains the project properties, and you got the entry point file console.writeline hello world. So without writing any commands, using the command palette Ctrl+Shift+P by searching this .NET, you can do a lot of commands in Visual Studio Code without writing any commands. Alright, we have seen the folder structure. Let's try to see the Solution Explorer. The Solution Explorer tab is similar to the Solution Explorer in Visual Studio. Here you have the solution name Hello World, and inside that you have a project called Hello World, and inside that you have the CS file, and you can see the dependencies also. You can right click on the Hello World to add packages, project references, and if you click on the project you can even see the csproj file. So without installing Visual Studio, you can do .NET development very easily in VS Code also, because in most of the cases people have VS Code already installed. If you don't want to use Visual Studio, you can use VS Code with C# Dev Kit extension to easily create .NET applications. And let's try to click on program.cs, and you can easily run this .NET application directly using this play button. Let's try to run the project. VS Code has run the commands to build the project, and it has run the project. You can see the output Hello World. There is a convenient user interface in VS Code for running common .NET tasks. In fact, since you are in VS Code, you can open an integrated command line here and run the .NET commands. So we are in the solution folder. Let's try to run the project using the .NET CLI here. So .NET run -- project, the folder path which is Hello World. Let's try to run this, and now you can see project is run. So now you can have a convenient editor in VS Code, and if you want, you can use the Visual Studio UI for running .NET tasks, or else open an integrated terminal like this and use the .NET CLI to run your .NET tasks. By the way, .NET CLI has a very convenient help commands. Just write any command you want to run and ask for help. For example, you can write .NET run, and if you want to know more about this command, just type -h, and you'll get the whole command line documentation right in the command line. If you want to know about .NET build, you can just write .NET build -h. You'll get the documentation about the .NET build command. This way you can easily understand and learn .NET commands while you are running your projects. So just remember, write any command you want to run and write -h at the end. You'll get the command line documentation. So that's it guys. This is how you can set up .NET development in Visual Studio Code or .NET CLI or Visual Studio. You can see I've created a blog post on how to set up a .NET development environment in Visual Studio, .NET CLI and Visual Studio Code. I've given you the images, notes, and also I've given the references to some official documentation so that you can do some further reading. For example, in the .NET CLI documentation, you can learn a lot about .NET CLI, how to use the .NET commands, etc. So please be sure to check out the link of this blog post in the description of this video. Please ask questions or post your valuable feedback in the comment section. Hope you like this video guys. Thank you for watching. Peace.